Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Effective Resume Thursdays. We're very, very glad you're with us. It's October 8th. Hard to believe we're into our third month, or 3 months to go for the year. Please note this event is being recorded and is currently live on Facebook. The recording will be on the Career DFW Facebook page and on the Career USA YouTube channel for others to view in the future. By participating in this event, and if you post a comment in the chat box or have your microphone or camera on, you give consent for your comments, name, and picture to appear. We ask that if you can, for everybody, if you would please go to the speaker view. I know that for some people, you may have gotten the updated Zoom. I know my laptop is updated to the latest Zoom features, but the desktop still hasn't. So this is the old desktop view here. They've changed the way the speaker view looks here on the new version of it. But in the lower left-hand corner is what we're asking people to do, speaker view. So you see the speaker on the right-hand side and the PowerPoint slide on the left. And where you see that little red arrow, there's a couple little white lines there. Or if you hover over that, you can then drag that back and forth if you're on a PC or Mac, and you can adjust the size of the speaker and the PowerPoint slide. Oops. For those people on Zoom, if you will, please enter your questions into the chat box. And for those people on Facebook, we've got a few people on Facebook right now, please just enter your questions into the comment box, and I am monitoring that feed, and I'll make sure we get those questions answered. We are going to review 1 or 2 resumes today live. You can submit your resume. We've already had one, so we're looking for one more resume that we may get to. If you want to delete the header information, you may do so before you submit your resume. Please remember your information will be published on Facebook and YouTube. So if you want to change your name to Angelina Jolie or Brad Pitt or Donald Trump, whatever you'd like to change it to, you're welcome to do that. Well, good afternoon. My name is Jeff Morris. I founded Career DFW back in 2008 to help the unemployed in the DFW area. In 2012, I started CareerUSA.org to help people outside the DFW area. I also wrote a book in 2012 called What I've Learned About Your Job Search That You May Not Know. And since 2007, I've been facilitating and leading the North Dallas Plano Career Focus Group. And I'll tell you about our upcoming program tomorrow at the end of this session. And since 2017, I've been a member of the practice interview team. We've got 2 great speakers with us today, Brickell, who's a certified professional career coach, and Susan Graye, who's a global talent acquisition attraction leader. So ladies, thank you for being with us, and take it away.
All right. And thank you, Jeff, for the introduction. And I will go ahead and share my screen and PowerPoint slides. Get into slideshow mode. And can you see my slides?
You're good to go.
Good to go. All right. So welcome to everyone. Looks like we've got a great group today. And so far we have 1 resume to review during the second half of this session today, so thank you for that. If somebody wants to send a second one, we might have time for that. We often run out of time, but we always get to at least 1. So, and we will be, this is designed to be interactive. So if everybody could click on the lower menu and click on the participant box, and I'm doing the same thing and moving it over to my second monitor. So if you see me looking over here, I'm looking at my second monitor where I have the participant box. And if you could click on the green check mark in the participant box if you've seen one of our Resume Thursday sessions once before. And if not, click on the red X if you've never seen one of our Resume Thursday sessions. We've got quite a few people that have come back. Wow, good, great. I hope you found it valuable and you wanted to come back. And every week we do mix up the content and bring in different guest speakers. And we've got a great co-presenter today. So good. And then if everybody could also open up the chat box. And here's our chat question of the week. Have you ever received conflicting advice about your resume? And if so, what was it? So if you go into chat and type yes or no, and then if a couple of keywords about any maybe confusing advice you've gotten or conflicting advice. And the reason I ask that is because if you show your resume to 10 different people, you probably will get 10 different pieces of feedback and maybe conflicting information. And that's because those of us that are reviewing resumes, we provide feedback based on our experiences and our perspective. And Yeah, somebody mentioned the number of pages. Yes, that can vary depending on the industry. If you're applying for higher education or government, they like 4 or 5 page resumes. Most professional recruiters like 2 pages. That's kind of the sweet spot. And then some people create a 1-page executive bio, but that serves a different purpose, more for informational interviews. Place the degrees, certifications at the top versus at the bottom. Yeah, as a recruiter, I got used to looking at the bottom. And so for most professional resumes, put the skills and the professional experience. And then sometimes we check the degree down at the bottom. Have your town at the top or don't have. If you want to stay like in the Dallas area, you'd probably put Dallas. Now, if you want to relocate to Portland, Oregon or something like that, you may want to leave it off. So that's depending. And full address versus city and state. Please, only city and state. There have actually been some employment law situations where people put their full street addresses. So there's a reason for that, just city and state, that's all that needed. And right justified dates or not, we'll talk about that. Yeah, for the company, you do want those right justified. For the individual jobs within a company, if you have multiple parentheses next to the job titles, we'll show an example of that. Great, great. Yeah, so you can get lots of different perspectives. So thanks for playing along with that. And by way of introduction, many of you have heard my introduction before. I've been a hiring manager in the IT environment. I worked at EDS that was acquired by Hewlett Packard. And in 2012, I took the early retirement package because I wanted to help people find jobs. So I got a job as a recruiter so I could really learn the recruiting industry from an agency and corporate perspective. I placed a lot of people in different roles. And then I retired from recruiting last year and started volunteering with the Dallas Pit Crew with Jeff, where we do mock interviews. And if you haven't practiced interviews, I highly recommend it. And this is a very wonderful organization where all you have to do is send your resume and a job description, and we'll put together a panel for you and put you through a mock interview and then give you some pointers on what you did well and how you can even improve. And then I'm certified by the Professional Association of Resume Writers and Career Coaches. And now I'll ask our co-presenter for today, Susan Graye. I'll ask Susan to introduce yourself.
Thank you, Carol. So I am a global talent attraction and acquisition lead. You know, basically saying my whole recruit background has been either as a recruiter or developing recruitment strategies. Over 20 years experience in recruitment. So, and that includes on the agency side as a consultant, as well as Carol and I worked together many years at Hewlett Packard, you know, which turned into Hewlett Packard Enterprise for me. And, you know, a lot of what I've looked at is, you know, developing strategies for, you know, high performance teams, exemplary candidate and hiring manager experience, but, you know, a lot of experience in terms of looking at sourcing, how a recruiter looks at it, applicant tracking systems, all that great stuff. And I'm thrilled to be here with Jeff and Carol today.
Great. And which applicant tracking systems did you use, Susan?
Great question. So the 2 primary ones are, in fact, I'm currently using Taleo with a client right now, which is now owned by Oracle. And the other one that I have a lot of experience with is Workday.
Okay, excellent. That's good to know that you've got that background. Good. And yeah, and I'd mentioned that I'd retired as a recruiter as well, and I worked with Next Step Recruiting most recently, and I still keep very close in touch with them. And they're always looking for great talent. In fact, they've been busier now than they were before the pandemic, because many of their clients are hiring. So if you meet any of the requirements for these hot jobs, or if you're an accountant, financial analyst, or HR generalist, or HR business partner, or HR manager, feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn, to Carol Brickell on LinkedIn, and I can get you connected with a great recruiter there. And I highly recommend networking with recruiters, because they can give you feedback about your resume and also feedback about the job market, and then they can be the ones to present you to hiring managers. So I highly encourage that. And then Susan, I see that you've posted a couple of hot jobs that you're recruiting for right now. Excellent. Did you want to say a couple words about those?
That'd be great. So Insight 360, which tomorrow becomes part of Vontier, which will be the newest member of the S&P 500, is actively recruiting for DevOps engineers and cloud architects. Positions can be filled outside of Houston where the company's based. So great opportunity, full benefits. And we have some other opportunities coming up in Insight 360. So if you're interested, feel free to reach out to me. Would be happy to share those with you and see if they're of interest. And I'll put the link to the career site if that would help as well.
Oh, excellent. Thank you. Good. So in today's agenda, during the first part, we'll talk about applicant tracking systems, and Susan will share her top resume tips, working as a recruiting leader. And then I'll walk through and review our key components of a resume, best practices for a resume, and then we'll review a sample resume. And I may even also share, before we show the one from the audience, I'll show you one that's out on the internet that has some issues. It's held up as a standard, but you'll see some issues right away. Okay, good. And a quick word about applicant tracking systems. Susan, would you like to walk us through this, or do you want to post your thing first? Okay, or do you want to walk us through this slide?
Yeah, I'm happy to walk you through it. So, applicant tracking systems, the key thing to remember is there's multiple ones and how they're used are different. And then there's new variations coming out. So parsing, Carol, I'm going to let you dive into that part. But, in terms of, how, Carol will talk a little bit about how once you put your resume in the system, it will parse and populate. So it's really important how you format it, because if it's not formatted correctly, it will parse in kind of interesting ways, right? And Carol, you want to talk about that real quickly? Because I know you're an expert in that piece of it.
Yeah, I was actually talking to a Workday consultant, and he said, like, if you put comma PMP after your last name on your resume, it'll read your name as your last name, comma PMP. And so most systems like Workday give you the chance to double check to make sure the data is okay. So you want to make sure your data is clean and then review it. But that's basically what an ATS system does, is it parses or takes the data and puts it into the database. Name, dates.
Yes. Exactly. And the new systems like Taleo with the update, one of the really cool things is you'll be able to put your resume in, but you can also put it as an attachment. So if you can share a screen, you can have a nice formatted resume that the recruiter can see, but you also want to have something that can parse. So if it populates in the system, it parses correctly. Hopefully that makes sense. Take the time, and we've talked about this in the past, to look at the job description and ensure keywords align to the job description. But at the same time, don't put in keywords for the sake of putting in keywords. As I'm doing resume screens with managers, this is a hot button. So if you put it in for fluff and you have every single keyword, but there's nothing to back up what you've done with that, they're going to pass on you even though you have every keyword in the job description. So don't put in the keyword if you don't have specific experience or deep experience, because it will not only catch you in the initial recruiter screen, it will put you in an uncomfortable situation when you're in an interview. Job scan is a great way to compare your resume to a job description. And, again, the resume is an attachment. One of the cool things, at least now with the new Taleo release, is as I'm looking at resumes, I can see the parsing, but I can easily click on your resume on the left-hand side to pull it up. So I would recommend having something that will parse well, but also having a well-designed resume for the recruiter to look at. Cover letters, I think they're kind of like we discussed, Carol, like the resumes. Everybody has different advice. It really is a recruiter, hiring manager type of thing. If you do a cover letter, align that cover letter to the job description and show how your specific experience relates.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, and we had a couple questions in the chat, and somebody mentioned, rightly so, that some ATS systems don't give you the option to review your data once you've parses it. I know Workday does, but some don't. So they all do work differently. And somebody asked about special characters and what if there's an ampersand in the name of the company. Now, since an ampersand is on a standard keyboard, I'm looking where it is. Yeah, it's on a standard keyboard. That's okay. When we say special characters, it's more like boxes or those special modified bullet points that aren't the standard bullet, like check marks or chevron marks. That's the type of thing we're talking about. And even underlines, especially when a letter goes below the line, that can cause issues. So thank you for those questions. Good. And regarding ATS systems, I mean, we talk about all these differences, and somebody rightly pointed out that each system works slightly differently. Don't spend too much time trying to figure out all the various systems. Keep the big picture in mind. And so basically, you know, upload a resume that's pretty clean from special formatting, boxes, underlines, and special unique characters like bullet points. And if you have the opportunity in the system, review the information once it's been uploaded. And then actually the most important thing is contact a person at the company. Don't just let the ATS system work for you and sit back, because your chances of getting called for an interview are very small. I've read statistics like 2%, and that kind of matches the percentage chance I would call applicants that applied to jobs. So in order to be noticed and to get a chance for an interview, you really do have to take an extra step and reach out to a person, either somebody you know at the company that can also forward your resume and vouch for you to the recruiting leader, or reach out to the recruiter who posted the job if you can see their name on the online applicant tracking systems, or call. And you have to do some research on this. Look on LinkedIn to see if you can find the name of a recruiting or talent acquisition leader, and then call that company's main phone number and ask for that person and leave them a very brief note. You know, it's like, hi, I'm Carol. I wanted to introduce myself because I just applied to your corporate recruiting position and I meet all of the requirements. And I'd be happy to come in for an interview or happy to have a conversation. And I found as a recruiter, I enjoyed getting those calls. And if somebody said they met the requirements, that really got my attention. And I'm curious, Susan, as a recruiter or recruiting leader, did you ever get calls from candidates when they said, you know, they just applied and they met all the requirements? What did you think?
Yeah, so number one advice for me is bigger the organization, especially when I worked at Hewlett Packard Enterprise, right? The job title is not going to mean anything to most of the people unless they're recruiting for that specific position.
Yeah, that's true.
So it's really, really important, if you do reach out to people in your network, capture, they're called job numbers or requisition numbers or position numbers, capture that number. And if you're keeping an Excel or however you're keeping track of what you're applying for, do ensure that the best person to talk to, like you said, Carol, is the recruiter recruiting for that position. The bigger the company, like an Amazon, they have such a huge number of recruiters, it may be tough to get to where you need to go. So, really try to find who the recruiter is, or at least the right business organization. And another quick hint, and Carol, you talked about this as well, is if you know somebody that works there, a lot of times they can put in a good reference for you, and or have them do a LinkedIn reference right on your profile. In addition to that, give them your LinkedIn profile. Anything you can do to connect the dots, the better off you are.
That's a great suggestion. I hadn't heard of that. And I think I'll update this slide to include that requisition number is really critical when you're reaching out to people. Like I said,
yeah, especially with big companies. I mean, you could have 20 people recruiting for software engineers and not aware of who's doing what software engineer position.
Yeah, I'm gonna make a note of that. That's a great ad. Okay, so Susan, would you like to walk us through your top tips?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. So number one is focus on your results and accomplishments. And anytime you can put quantitative data, the better off you are. So if you're just starting your job search and you have that information in hand, all the better. You have old performance reviews that you've kept, look at that information to help you pull together the results and accomplishments. Part of what your resume does is help sell why you versus someone else. And the better you can quantify what you can do, the more likely they are to go, hey, this is somebody that's going to meet our KPIs, our key performance indicators. So number 2, spotlight features and benefits. And I see this happen all the time where somebody says, this is what I did. Well, this is not, your resume is not meant to be a job description. It's meant to show what you accomplished. So show, this is what I did, but this is the benefit to you in hiring me. Always keep in mind, and Carol, you brought this up to me in one of our first meetings talking about this, what's in it for me? So what is in it for the company in hiring you? Don't assume they're going to pick it up by reading your resume. Help pull that story together. Number 3, there you go. Utilize your action verbs to start each bullet. You know, and keep those bullets simple. This is, you know, the shorter you keep it, the larger the font, the better off you are. I have on my big reading glasses today, but, you know, action verbs are huge. Number 4, already talked about this one, but keep it simple. One of my favorite things to say is you don't want it to be like the Cheesecake Factory menu, where there's so much to choose from, they can't figure out where to go to find it. Your job is to whet the appetite, not to confuse the manager or the recruiter. Keep it simple and have them call you to go, oh my God, this looks great. Tell me more about how you were able to do X, Y, Z. And number 5, look at that job description and ensure your resume aligns with what you're applying for. Many of you have done amazing things in your career, but if you're applying for, you know, like from my standpoint, I've done employment brands. If I'm applying for employment brand, they're not going to care as much that I built, you know, a sourcing model. So focus in terms of what you're looking for, and help them understand how you're a fit. You know, the better you can show the fit, the more likely you're going to move to the next step.
Okay, there's a summary of your top resume tips. So this is really valuable to hear directly from an executive of recruiting organizations. So thank you, Susan, for sharing your tips with us. Yeah, and also in doing research for these presentations, I found these interesting statistics from a couple of different websites, including Career Builder and the Motley Fool. And basically, one statistic is 40% of hiring managers spend less than a minute reviewing resumes. Yes, and many spend less than 30 seconds. And recruiters, especially the first time when we're just scanning through resumes, I used to say 5 to 10 seconds, and I read in a Forbes article recently that recruiters spend on average about 7.4 seconds looking at resumes. So that's why all the tips that Susan just mentioned, you know, keep it brief, keep it concise, make the formatting clean are so important. And interesting that number 2, that 75% of HR managers have caught a lie on a resume, and I've caught a couple in my career. So you just want to make sure that everything you have is accurate and true. And 35% of employers, an unprofessional email address is a major problem. So they do recommend, make it look almost like a business email, you know, with your name. Mine is brickell.carol@yahoo.com. It's not Carol likes kitty cats or something silly. You know, you want to make sure it looks, kind of mimics a professional email address. Good. And then somebody said AOL is a no-no because it is old school. And even my Yahoo account's kind of old. I should probably switch over to Gmail, and Hotmail's kind of a little bit older school too. So yeah, so you do want to use more modern ones like Gmail, or if you have your own domain address, that looks really cool as well. And 77% of hiring managers disqualify resumes because of grammatical mistakes and typos. Those stand out to me when I'm coaching people and they have a beautiful resume with lots of great experience, but there's spacing issues in these bullet points. That's what I remember. And I have seen hiring managers throw aside resumes with typos. And I would say at least 90 to 95% of resumes I look at have some sort of issue with them. Okay. Somebody said Gmail is too snoopy, therefore avoid it. Okay, that's good. Maybe that's why I haven't switched over. Interesting. Okay, then a resume that's longer than 2 pages is a deal breaker for some hiring managers. Yeah, it does get to be cumbersome. And what I like to do is when I print them off is front and back, so they're just on 1 page. So that's another kind of benefit of keeping it on just the 2 pages. I just thought of that right now because that's what I do if I do print off a resume. Okay. And then to summarize characteristics of good resumes, you want to make it easy for those applicant tracking systems to see that you match the keywords, and you want to make it easy for the people, the recruiters and hiring managers, to see that you're a good match. So you want the formatting to be clean and lots of white space and not too much text. And the overall length we've talked about, 2 pages is really kind of the sweet spot for people that have had some professional experience. And the number of years, we'll put up a polling question and see what option people like with this. So with this polling question, select the option that works best for you, because it may be different based on your situation, and it may vary based on your situation. The one option is to show all of your experience. And when I interviewed for a job at the age of 60, I showed that I've been working since 1980 on, but most people knew I'd been with EDS for a long time. So that worked for me, but not everybody does that. And then as a recruiter, I saw a lot of resumes where they were chopped off after the most recent 10 or 15 years, but that actually caused confusion sometimes when we'd have interview discussions. If I asked a question like, tell me about a time you implemented a major change across an organization, and if they answered, oh, when I was at IBM, blah, 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 and I'd be looking at the resume going, where was that? And they'd say, oh, that was so long ago, I just took it off. That would kind of cause confusion. So another alternative is to go ahead and focus and put more information about your most recent positions, maybe 10, 15 years, or even 20 years of experience, and then have a heading that says prior relevant experience, and at least list the company names and the job titles, just so the hiring manager can see the full story, because that's what hiring managers want to see. They want to see your progression. They want to see where you've been. They may not need to see all the details. So, and then it avoids any confusion during the interview in case you mention something that's not on your resume. So hopefully that makes sense. And then I've added this because this has come up a lot when I've been talking with people, especially now that we're in a pandemic. A lot of people have a gap, at the top of their resume. Maybe you were laid off in 2019 or maybe even 2018. I've seen a lot of people that were laid off then, and the economy's been kind of slow, and then now we're in the pandemic. And so people are asking me, how do I fill that gap? And one option is to put, instead of a company name for the work you're doing now, put a functional title such as community leadership or consulting or continuing education, and then put some bullet points about things that you've been doing. And somebody says, does the full story have the potential to inadvertently tell the hiring manager how old you are? Good question. And that's what you can leave off those dates if you want. So you can show maybe the most recent 10, 15 years and then just list a couple of companies with a couple of titles. On your resume, you don't have to put all the dates. Now on LinkedIn and the application, you will need to disclose that. So, okay. And let me show you an example of how to fill a gap on a resume. And this is what I would do on my resume if I wanted to show work that I've been doing while I've been job seeking. If I were job seeking, I would put something like community leadership and consulting. And this is because I have served as a panelist and a coach for the PIC Crew organization. And I also have provided consulting services to a nonprofit organization. Now, this was pro bono work, but I was requested to come in and do consulting as they were preparing to hire people in this organization. Happened to be a church. I just wrote down a nonprofit organization. So that's one way you can fill a gap, either at the top of your resume, if you've had a gap for a while, or between jobs. Now we'll walk through some of the main key components of a resume. And these are some of the components. You might have others as well, like certifications or publications. We'll talk about heading, summary, an optional accomplishment section, and your professional experience and previous relevant experience if you choose to show it that way, and education and software. So we'll walk through each one of these components. And for your heading, your contact information, I highlight no need for the physical street address. You can just put the city or the closest major city. In fact, just the other day I was looking at a resume and somebody lived in a suburb I hadn't heard before, and I've lived here since 1979. It was a suburb I didn't know, and so they ended up putting Dallas on their resume to make sure it's more recognizable. And then you can put the zip code if you wish. Some recruiters do search on that. And you want your professional looking email address and your LinkedIn URL. And some ATS systems get messed up if you put a hot link there in the version of the resume that you upload into the system. So just put it in text format and people can copy and paste that if needed. And the summary profile is a very important section of your resume. And if you've been a certain job title and you're applying for that job title, put it front and center at the top of your resume that you're that type of person. So the recruiter can look at the resume and go, oh, good, this is the person I'm looking for. If you've been a business analyst and are applying for a business analyst job, put it there. Now, if you're making a slight transition, you may have to use a broader term. Like I saw somebody the other day use a term like operations leader, operations executive, and then they modify it slightly each time they apply for a job. And you want to have an opening summary paragraph that describes who you are as a professional relating to the things they need you to do in the job that you're applying to. So this is a section you definitely want to update each time you apply for a job. And you want to update the areas of expertise to match the key words that they're requesting in the job description. And as Susan mentioned, and Susan, I'm really glad you mentioned this, if you mention like agile methodologies at the top of your resume, but in your professional experience, you never mention that you led a project using agile, yeah, that can really cause issues or concerns. So please follow it up. And I've heard several recruiters mention that. Good. And for people that are in roles where you have to meet a lot of targets or very quantitative, sometimes it's good to have a key accomplishments section right below your areas of expertise where you can highlight how you've achieved certain targets. And so this is useful to do for some people. And so that's an option for you. And then everybody should have a professional experience section in reverse chronological order. Make sure it's very easy to read. And this is where we do recommend that the dates associated with how long you've been at that company are right justified. So it's really easy to see those. If they're over here to the left, it gets harder to see. And make sure your verbs are consistent and parallel, especially for past jobs. Everything needs to be in the past tense. I just before this call was helping somebody with a resume and they had present, past, ing, all different types of tenses. And those have to be cleaned up. I've seen hiring managers throw away resumes if the verbs aren't consistent. And for each job, you want to limit the number of bullets to 5 to 8 of the most impactful accomplishments, especially related to the types of jobs that you're seeking. And because if you have 15 or 20 bullet points, nobody can absorb that many. And the bullets, as Susan mentioned, should not read like a job description. I did this, 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 and this, but be more like headlines about accomplishments. And the way to focus on results or make it really focus on accomplishments is to play what we call the so what game, where you kind of look at the bullet point and ask yourself, so what? What was the impact? What was the result? And if there's an answer to that question, that might actually give you a stronger verb that you can use on your resume. And here's an example. And give me a green check mark, everybody, if you've seen this example before, the so what game. So if you've seen me do the so what game, go into the participant box and give me the green check mark. So a couple of people have seen this, so I apologize for that. You're gonna have to hear it again, but I do this almost every time when I'm working with people on their resumes. And this is an example of a pretty good sounding bullet. And this was real on a resume where somebody had developed a Visual Basic program to automate the conversion and migration of data. And I said, so what? What was the result, or what was the impact? And then he thought for a minute, he goes, yeah, actually there was an impact. It reduced the data migration time, and it minimized errors and increased the stakeholder confidence. So he rewrote that bullet to start with those stronger verbs that really focused on the outcome and the result. The reduced data time, the fact they eliminated errors and increased the stakeholder confidence. Good. And here's another slide about dates, and this might get to the person that asked a question about whether they should be right justified or not. So the dates associated with the company should be right justified and show the full tenure you were at that company. And then for each job, if you had multiple jobs with the company, you could put those in parentheses next to those job titles. So what that does is it shows the progression that you had within the company. And if you were to right justify all these dates and you don't show the full tenure at the company, then it almost looks like you're a job hopper. So this is what we recommend to make it very clear how long you were at that company and the fact you had good longevity and progression.
Carol, I'm gonna jump in real quick. Something
Yes.
really important to keep in mind is if you have had multiple positions, but some of them have been contract roles, which a lot of people do these days, right? Make sure and point that out. I've been in a lot of resume reviews, even just this week, where it's confusing. So someone's 5 months, 6 months, 8 months, 9 months. It's really important to clarify, as this shows multiple roles at one company, but also to clarify if you were working on a contract versus a full-time, because if you had a lot of contracts you've been working on, they might all be great, but it won't look like you're a job hopper if you show that it was project work versus working for one employer. Thanks.
Right, I'm really glad to hear you bring that up. So do you recommend that people put contract, if they're...
Yeah, I would, because otherwise they're going to wonder why you don't have the ability to stick.
Okay. And this is a really great opportunity. I've been coaching a couple people that have had the same situation where in the recent couple of years that's been all contract positions. And so they're wondering if they could group them together. Like, for example, somebody was a recruiter, and what she ended up doing was writing, instead of the name of the company, she put recruiting consultant. And then the line underneath that, worked for a variety of, or worked contract positions for a variety of companies, including, and listed the company names, and then just had bullets. But then she could, and then the dates were like 2018 to present. So she grouped them together. What do you think of that?
I think that could most definitely work, and that could be a great idea. I think if you're a technical person, something you have to be very careful of is the manager that's looking at a cloud engineer, that's looking at DevOps, is going to want to know, what did you do? What tools did you use, and such like that. So you could have the heading there, but it's going to be really important to show what the project was you worked on, what your role was on the team, and what specific tools and technologies you work with, and what you
for each project. Yes. Yeah. Good. That's excellent advice there. Good. And somebody made the comment that so what principle applies to sales presentations. Exactly. That's actually where I learned the trick, was writing, actually it was proposals in the government sector, basically to any document where the audience gives you a little time to make an impression. Good. Yeah, that's actually where I learned that. Good. And then one other question that we get asked a lot is, how do you handle situation where the company has changed names. So, or if they've been acquired or if they've merged. So there are a couple different options. One, you can give the current name of the company followed by the old name, or the old name with the new company name. And for example, when I retired from Enterprise or HP Enterprise Services in 2012, my resume said HP Enterprise Services and I put formerly EDS, or I could have said EDS acquired by Hewlett Packard in the year that it was acquired. So there's a couple different options depending on what works best for you in this situation. And education and software, it's important to list those truthfully. If you don't have your bachelor's degree, if you just went for a couple years, don't put bachelor's. I've seen people do that unintentionally, but it kind of looks like you're falsifying if you don't have that. And then list software skills. And if the job description asks for Microsoft Excel, go ahead and include that on your resume. It might seem kind of basic, but if they're looking for that skill, and if they're looking for pivot tables and VLOOKUPs, include that in your software section. And then this is a slide that illustrates how to look at a job description. I'm turning on the annotation capability right now. So this is a job description on the left for a business analyst, because we talk about the importance of when you're applying for a job, take a moment and really read the job description and get your mind around what are they looking for. And when I'm coaching people, I go through this exercise all the time with people. They say, I want to submit my resume. Give me your feedback. I said, well, let me see the job description first. And so during my coaching sessions with people, I said, let's really look at this job description and pull out what are the key things they're looking for. And therefore, what words do you want to really highlight in your resume? So in this one, they're looking for a business analyst who has documented business requirements and has improved processes. So you want to be sure to include those words on your resume. And so they're looking for somebody who's innovative. And then down below on a job description, be sure to read the section that says qualifications or requirements, or here's what you need to bring to the job. Be sure to read that section and look for the skills that they're looking for. And for example, if they're looking for Agile, and if you have that capability, list that top and center. If they're looking for a software package like Visual Studio, put that in your software skills. And then as Susan mentioned, mention in your professional experience where you've used that and done that. Okay. Let's see, and somebody said, okay, interested in a business analyst position, well qualified, but all 5 locations are in Ohio. I'd play dumb and submit my resume anyway, because companies are learning now that you can work virtually from anywhere. So I don't know if that answers your question there, but I wouldn't spend a lot of time on it, but I would apply and follow up with somebody. Yeah. And I don't know if Susan has any recommendations from
Yeah, so I put exactly what I shared earlier. The business analyst positions are part of a different part of Vontier. So, if you do see things on a corporate website, again, get those position numbers, because what that allows the recruiter to do is what I'll be able to do, which is go into the applicant tracking system, look up the position number, see who the recruiter is, and let them know, hey, I met Lily at Career DFW event. Please look at this resume and see if it's a fit for what you have. So always write down the position number, requisition number, job number, whatever they call it, and that aligns it. The second thing is, companies, not just across the United States right now, are trying to figure out work from home and how long it's going to last, and opening up to remote work. So now more than ever, if it is in a specific location, I would apply, because you never know. You never know. And a lot of them still haven't decided direction.
Yeah. So great, thank you. And we do have a sample resume we're going to show, but I also wanted to show this one right now, because this is one that I pulled off the internet from a resume writing company. They put out there as an example. And so I'd like for everyone to go into chat and look at this real quickly. and just type in a couple words about issues, any issues you see with this particular resume. So when you see this, do you see any issues? There's an address there. There's a summary section here. There are some dates. There's a space here. There's not a space there. There's some verb issues. So basically this resume has a lot of issues associated with it, and it's held as an example. The summary section, it's in italics and it's kind of summarized, and so it makes it look funny. And somebody, thank you, in chat wrote that they have the full street address for the applicant, and there's inconsistent spacing with these dates. And job in the past has present tense verbs. So, and then additional skills at the bottom. You want to highlight your areas of expertise up top and maybe just have your software skills in the bottom. And so it's just, yeah, and somebody's picking up on all these issues. So I just wanted to share that, but be careful of the samples that are out there on the internet, because now that you've been through this little workshop, these issues are jumping out at you that you can see. So now at this time, we will pull up the sample resume. And we've also shared the a template for a resume in the chat box. Okay. And I'm going to do new share. Let's see if this works. Sometimes when I bring up the file and then, yeah, it kicks me out. I'll just bring it up real quick again. This happens a lot. I don't know why. I do want to make the text a little bigger. Okay. So at this time, what I'd like people to do is we will scroll through this resume, and I'd like for everybody to look at it and go into chat and type in words about things you like about this resume. And if you see any suggestions for improvement, go ahead and type those in. So I'll just scroll down this just like I was a recruiter looking at this particular resume. So I've got the heading information and the title, backup administrator, and work experience. And scroll down. There's contractor. Okay. And here's a company with multiple jobs within that company. Multiple jobs. So lots of progression there. And so one positive thing I see from a career progression is longevity with the company and multiple jobs. I would add the dates in parentheses after the job titles, so it's real clear when you had them. And you've done that twice for 2 different companies. Good. And I'm finding, and I'm curious, Susan, your perspective on this, whether people need to put a heading on the second page. What's your opinion about that? And you might be answering the question in chat right now. I appreciate you answering the questions. But this resume has a heading on the second page.
Yeah, I personally like to see the heading on the second page, just, but, it probably is a matter of, preference.
Okay. Yeah. And so I think it's whatever's comfortable with you and me. And so this shows, it illustrates different perspectives. As a recruiter, I'm usually looking at them online, and I don't need a header on the second page because I'm just looking at it online. And it also breaks my flow of thought too. So it depends. Yeah. And depends what you want to do.
Okay. Go up, Carol. What I don't see on the resume
And I can't quite hear you. I don't know if something.
Oh, can you hear me now? What I don't see on the resume that I really would have liked to seen was, you've done so many great things, Jeff. It would be a summer, like the technical stuff all together. You have to look for it job to job. For a lot of the technical resumes I look at, I'll see that in the upfront piece. And Carol, I'd love to hear your thoughts on that as well. For when it's a technical job, knowing what architecture you've worked with, networks you've worked with, all that is probably more important to me than some of the bullets you have here.
Yes, Susan, absolutely. I do agree with that. The opening sentence, Summary could be up to 3 lines, so you can add more there. And if the job description isn't looking for a process champion or a responsible communicator or somebody situationally aware, I would not use those terms. It's really, as a hiring manager, if we're hiring for a technical job, yes, we're looking for specific technical areas of expertise. And sometimes people will list professional skills, like, if there's professional technical skills you need to have, like the ability, like knowledge of system development, lifecycle, agile methodologies, or documenting business requirements. And then you may have technical skills at the top of your resume for technical jobs and list various technical things you've done.
I think you can also delete the very first 2 words, detail oriented, because
Yes.
I expect that you're going to be detail oriented. So just go with IT professional, which then gets that all in the one line. Yeah, everybody's detail oriented.
I'm glad you brought that up, Jeff. I'm reading more and more articles that recruiters are getting so tired of those overused words. And if you're in a technical role and you're not detail oriented, that's a problem. So yeah, that's just something everybody needs to bring to the game. So I would recommend rewriting this summary section. Maybe look at some examples out there, look at our template and see if just by adapting and putting more of the technical terms that are used in the job descriptions for the jobs you're looking for, rather than these kind of tag words, tag lines here. Okay. Okay, good. And what I would recommend, the dates get a little lost. Number one, they're not justified. I would make them line up a little bit better. I would make this whole line bold with the date and the company title. Just make the whole line bold. It'll make it stand out a little bit better.
And also, I don't think you need to have the months on there. This is not a job. This isn't a job application. Just put the years 2015 to 2019.
Yes, that'll make it cleaner.
Right. It'll make it a little bit easier to see and easier for a recruiter to sort of see continuity. Because your dates all continent between November, 2015, 2015, 13 to 13. I mean, you match up fine. So there's no reason to put months in there.
Right. And then since it's been since 2019, you may consider, if you've done some continuing education, maybe you achieved a certification, and maybe you've done some consulting, even if it was for a friend or a church or something. If you've done some consulting, you could say something like consulting and continuing education and have a couple bullets and say 2019 to present. I mean, you could do that if you want to fill that gap. Oh, HP. Aha. Well, that's good. Okay, Nokia. Yeah, I think that's it. Any other comments?
Just a quick question, Carol and Jeff. I mean, what are your thoughts regarding having the city and state next to the position? I think you don't necessarily need to put that level of detail in terms of where it is you worked on the resume. In my mind, the simpler you have it, the easier it is to read. So that detail is great. But again, that would be something you might want to talk about when you're brought in for an interview versus necessarily calling out, it was this office.
Yeah, it really isn't as necessary anymore. And I think it used to be. And maybe if somebody moved from one place to another and they want to show the reason for leaving was they decided to relocate to Dallas or something, sometimes people will do it. But you're right, that could really clean it up, and it's not as necessary. And it's in the it'd probably be in the application process. So yeah. And we had a question or a comment in the chat box. I have name only on the second page. Same font and font size. Okay. And somebody said remove the italics. Yeah, and that's a style preference. I've seen it with the headings with the company name in bold, and then the titles actually in bold italics. And I think that looks a little better than the not bold italics. So that's kind of a style preference there. And so somebody recommends that. Okay.
And I think if you can play the so what game on some of these, I don't see a
Yes,
lot of
sorry.
so whats. So, you know, there's not a lot of, yeah. I mean, I don't see numbers, statistics, savings,
Mm-hmm.
you know, for every one of those. So what?
Okay. Yeah, I would recommend that as well. And so Jeff, if you want any follow-up, you're welcome to follow up with me if you want to talk further about this. And I really appreciate you sharing your resume. This is usually people's favorite part of the workshop, to see something real. So thank you for doing that. And thank you, Susan, for serving as an additional subject matter expert today. Good.
All right, well, great. Well, thank you all very, very much. I just want to let people know that for those people who are on Facebook, if you'd like to get the sample resume or the sample T cover letter, if you'll send me a resume at webmastercareerdfw.org, I'll be sure to get that to you. So upcoming programming, tomorrow morning at 9:30, our speaker at the North Dallas Plano Career Focus Group will be talking about identifying and leveraging competencies to secure a job offer. So that's tomorrow morning at 9:30. You can join us then. Next Tuesday, Ruth Lipsky will be with us for LinkedIn Tuesdays. She'll be talking about special features for job seekers. Also then Tuesday afternoon, the Frisco Career Transition Workshop will be having session number 5 of 6. It'll be networking and building relationships. And then Wednesday, on Interviewing Wednesdays, we'll be on session number 11, how to target companies, information interviews, and networking. So those are the upcoming programming that we've got going on. So please join us for all those things. All these sessions are, today's session is being recorded. All these sessions will be recorded. They will be on the Career FW Facebook page. They'll be on the Career USA YouTube channel. If you're on Facebook, if you, please follow us on Facebook. Every time we go live, you'll get a little alert on your phone saying the Career FW is currently live. And if you subscribe to us on the YouTube channel, you will, every time we post, every time we get this video, like this afternoon's video will be up in about 2 hours. Once it's up there, you'll get a notification saying that a new video has been posted up to the workshop. Here's what it looks like on the YouTube channel. It's Career USA. If you click on playlist, the easiest way, you then will see the different playlists that I've created, and there's 6 or 7 of them now. And then underneath the playlist, view full playlist. And when you do that, up will come a list of all the different seminars, and you can find what's going on each one of them. So that's the easiest way to do that. So just as a reminder, Career FW is a 501c3 nonprofit organization. Carol's a volunteer, Susan's a volunteer. We're all volunteering to help you land your next great opportunity. None of us get paid to do what we're doing. We're just here to help you. So we survive on donations. So please, when you consider making a donation, when you land your next great opportunity, help Career FW to continue to do what we're doing. If your company happens to offer matching donations, please look us up so your donation can double in value. And if you don't see our name on the list, please reach out to me. I will get our name added. So once again, Susan and Carol, thank you very much for your time. Thank you very much for joining us today. And hopefully we'll see you either tomorrow morning or one day next week.
Thanks, Jeff. Bye, everyone. Thanks for participating.